Good day, everybody. This is Kat from Cats About Town with TVC 22 for Clarence Rockland. Our guest today is Robert Cléroux, president of the Rockland Legion. The Legion is one of the organizations that everybody hears about, doesn't know necessarily much about, but definitely an important part of every community because it brings in the people who have already proven themselves as serving our community and finding other ways of doing so. But I'll let Robert tell you much more about it. Welcome, Robert, to our show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Now, we will start first by letting people know about you a little bit and how long you've been president, how long you've been with the Legion, and what brought you to the Legion.
Thanks. Well, born and raised in Ottawa, Vanier mostly, and in grade 7 we moved to Hull, and my mom used to say that at a very young age, people would ask me what I was going to do when I grew up, and I would say I'm going to join the Army. So it's not surprising that I started off with Scouts and then Air Cadets, and by the time I was 17 I joined the Reserve, the militia, the Army Reserve. And by that time I knew that I wanted to join the military. So at 18, when I graduated from Saison 5, Mont Bleu in Hull, I went to the recruiting center and joined the Navy. I really went to the recruiting center to join the Air Force, but the recruiter said it was going to take 6 months for me to join the Air Force, but if I wanted to be in the Navy, I could be in the Navy the next week. So the Navy is what I chose.
After waiting all that time? Yeah.
And I really joined the armed forces for the trades, for the travel, for the adventure, and I got all of that. I spent 37 years in the Royal Canadian Navy, mostly serving on the west coast in a place called Esquimalt, just outside of Victoria, British Columbia. Traveled all over the world, and finished my career as the Canadian Forces Chief Warrant Officer, the highest non-commissioned member that the Canadian Forces has. I was working for General Natinchuk, and for a short time, about 8 months, for General Lawson, the current Chief of Defence Staff. I retired about 1.5 years ago, and after all of that time serving my country, I wanted to continue to serve my community. So I let my name stand for 2 volunteer positions. The first one is President of the Royal Canadian Naval Benevolent Fund, which is out of Ottawa. I sit on a board and I'm the president of that fund. And the second position is as the president of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 554 here in Rockland. Lucky enough, I was elected for both positions. So I've been the president now for not quite 1 year yet.
Well, I guess as a military man, you're used to being very busy and to having many projects and issues to solve. So retirement is not exactly something that would come easily to you if it involved gardening.
Though I do enjoy gardening and I do enjoy camping, and my wife and I enjoy traveling, I debated whether or not when I retired from the military to go back to work into another full-time position, but I wanted to take a break, and I knew that sitting at home doing nothing was not going to be good for me, so I thought that volunteer work would keep me busy enough that I wouldn't miss the armed forces. Having said that, I still miss the people in the armed forces, and I still miss the comradeship that you have, but the volunteer position also gives me a little bit of that.
I've spoken to a few military people here. There seem to be quite a few of them in Clarence Rockland, and I have been struck by their sense of service and mission and their commitment and their willingness to work incredibly hard to do what needs to be done. So I see it as tremendously good training.
It is. One of the things that the military teaches you is service before self. And that service before self to your country as a military member, but it becomes ingrained in you. And to be fair, my dad is a Knights of Columbus and probably has been a Knights of Columbus, I think, for 60 years. He's been Grand Knight here in Rockland twice. So that service to his community is something that I grew up with. And giving back to my community, I've just felt that it was something that I could do.
So did you ever serve abroad, or did you travel much abroad?
I did.
As part of your work?
As part of my career in the Navy, I spent almost 18 years at sea. So I visited just about every continent, I would say, except Africa and Antarctica. I've been to the Far East many, many times. My wife jokes that I've been to Hawaii something like 30 times. Because I sail out of the West Coast, almost every winter ships would go down to Hawaii. There's a huge military base there at Pearl Harbor, and do exercises with the American. Or when we were transiting to Australia or to the Far East, often we would stop in Hawaii for fueling. I've been to the Mediterranean, to the Adriatic, to the Persian Gulf twice. Yeah, I've traveled the entire world.
And during that time, did you get to spend time on land and to get to know communities around the world?
Something that's interesting about the Navy is that when we go to a foreign port, a lot of the times you were there for a short period of time. It's 2 or 3 days, sometimes as long as 7 days, but very rarely. So yes, I did get to visit a lot of places, and occasionally we would stop and go and help at orphanages or cleanups or getting involved with the community. That's something that the Navy does in many, many ports we visit.
And then you come back here, and this is your most favorite place in the whole wide world, yes?
Absolutely, yeah. Canada is a wonderful, wonderful country, and we're so privileged to live here. I've traveled the entire world, and as I've said, coming home is always the best.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Now, you have a very famous, what do you call each other? You don't call each other colleagues. What do you call each other when you're part of the military? Is there a term? Not necessarily. Well, I'm thinking of Jean Vanier, of course, who was also Navy. And he started the L'Arche communities. I don't know if you know the story of Jean Vanier. Quite a remarkable story.
Yeah.
Well, he, I don't know if you're familiar with the L'Arche communities, but there are, I don't know, maybe 40 of them around the world. And as the story goes, he was a naval officer, and he was in port in Marseille, I think. And he saw these two men who were sitting there when he went off the ship. They were still sitting there when he got back on the ship. The next morning they were still sitting there. And he thought, as most people would, that they were just drunks. And then he found out that they were, what were they, autistic or something? I'm not sure. And something just snapped in him, something just tweaked in him. And he started opening L'Arche communities around the world. So you start with people who already have a sense of service, and you give them something, expose them to something like that, and the sky's the limit, I guess.
I have a tie-in story to yours, actually.
Yeah.
I grew up at that time it was called Eastview, and eventually became Vanier. It was named, of course, after the Governor General, George Vanier. And when I grew up in grade 1, we used to go to the Governor General's house and pick leaves to do a booklet of different leaves. Of course, the Governor General had so many different leaves, you could get all the leaves in one shot. And one day the Governor General came out as these young children of 7 years old or so, 6 or 7 years old, were picking leaves on his property and came and talked to us. So I got to meet the Governor General at that time. And my daughter went to Jean Vanier School in Vanier when we were living at Ottawa North.
Well, there you go. We were meant to mention Jean Vanier.
Absolutely.
I believe he's the nephew of Georges Vanier and his wife, but I'm not sure. It's some close connection in any case. So here you are in Clarence, Rockland, and the work that you do in Ottawa with
Royal Canadian Naval Benevolent Fund.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that at all. Perhaps you'd like to say a few words about it?
Sure. The fund has been around since 1946. It is a benevolent fund that helps veterans. We specifically help naval veterans, but we also help Army and Air Force veterans who have served with the Navy. It's a fairly large fund. We have about $5 million in the fund. Last year we gave about $125,000 away in bursaries, and I would say almost $200,000 in financial help. A lot of the people that we help are the same type of people that the Legion helps, widows of veterans who have financial issues, and may just need help to buy dentures or hearing aids, or the roof needs to be replaced and they just don't have the funds anymore to take care of their own home. So we provide that kind of assistance.
So these funds are funds that you collect yourselves?
For many years, the money came from donations from serving sailors and from profits from canteens and messes, but that stopped in 1968. Because of unification, the Royal Canadian Navy joined what was at that time Canadian Armed Forces. Now we've gone back to the Royal Canadian Navy, and the money didn't come from messes anymore. So we were very smart, maybe a little bit lucky. We invested the monies that we had. So we've been about half the money has been invested in the stock market, about half in bonds. And we try to stay within the interests that we make every year in our expenditures. Not always successful, depending how the market does.
Mm-hmm. This is very interesting because just last week I interviewed, exactly a week ago, I interviewed our Member of Parliament, Pierre Lemieux,
yes,
who has just been appointed Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans Affairs, and we talked briefly about some of the programs they have. So it seems to be an unintentional common theme running through the month. But definitely there is a strong focus on the need to protect and do right by our veterans who have served so hard. And I guess the government has its ways of doing it and its constraints. But then, of course, there are the associations that
absolutely,
can do theirs.
And that is our mission as a Legion, is to take care of the veterans and those who are still serving and their families and the RCMP. And of course, to tie in with that is the continuation of the importance of Remembrance Day. When you buy a poppy the week before November 11th, those monies are held in trust specifically to assist veterans. We do other fundraisings which we can help other people in the community, but the poppy sales are specifically to assist veterans.
How do the veterans come to you for help? Do they approach you, or do you have a list of them?
No, they really do need to approach us. We have a service officer, his name is Doug Dinsmore, and as an example, Doug in the past year has been approached by 2 veterans who needed assistance. They needed assistance with application for benefits through Veterans Affairs. So Doug took down the information, helped them fill out the paperwork, submitted the paperwork to a provincial service officer, which works here in Ottawa, actually at Dominion Command. And then that process is then forwarded to Veterans Affairs for assistance.
I have to throw in a little story here because this goes back to, it's allowed sometimes. I was born in Hungary.
Okay.
And my father was a veteran, and he helped Jews, and he hid them, and he had a lot of Jewish friends. And when we came to Canada, my father was Roman Catholic. And this is not to hit the Roman Catholic Church, because the Roman Catholic Church, like every organization, is an organization, and it has some good people and some not good people. But when he came here, he linked up with his Jewish friends and found that they were all helping each other and all doing extremely well. Whereas when he approached the Catholic Church for help, there was nothing that was available for him. He wasn't a Canadian vet, so he couldn't go there. And of course he managed, because he's, like so many military, he was a survivor. Mm-hmm. But I know that it really, really hurt that there was no place to turn. So the knowledge that there's a comfort, the comfort of knowing that there is some place where you can turn to people who understand you.
Absolutely.
After everything you've done, mm-hmm, is very important. Do you get paid for the work that you do?
No. It's strictly volunteer. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And you must see some very difficult cases that break your heart.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always surprised by, and specifically widows, 85-year-old widows who are barely able to afford the rent, electricity, food, and then their dentures break or their hearing aid is lost, and then they say, well, I can't replace it because I don't have the money. And to me, that seems almost unbelievable in a country like Canada. Those cases are difficult to see, but we're always ready to assist.
It's very unfortunate that that should happen to the widows of veterans. It's very unfortunate that it should happen to anybody at all.
Sure.
Now, obviously, through everything that you've learned, that anybody in the military has learned, you want to find a way to pass on that knowledge to the young people. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the young people.
It is.
Once we get to the end of our road. So do you have programs? Do you have activities?
We do. We have, let me start with our poster and literacy contest. So this is really focused on...
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. We're going to interrupt because this is going to be very interesting and involved, and I think we have to break at just about this point for a community announcement. And we'll come right back and get into the poster and education.
Poster and literacy contest.
Poster and literacy contest.
Thanks.
Le GF Show, c'est quoi?
Bienvenue au GF Show, c'est un tout nouveau TV show, on va dire. Ah ouais, voici, let's go! Je sais pas si vous allez me trouver pas. Bienvenue tout le monde au GF Show, c'est un tout nouveau TV show. Vous allez voir, je suis pas que numéro. On va avoir du fun, oh ouais, go! Bienvenue tout le monde.
Le GF Show, c'est de l'humour, de l'entertainment, du divertissement, des sketchs, des parodies, des conneries, des observations, des chroniques et j'en passe. Le GF Show, c'est tout! C'est n'importe quoi! C'est pour vous autres, c'est à TVC 22 puis c'est là. Ne le manquez pas!
Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue au GF Show.
Your health. Tips for healthy living.
Falls and slips can occur when clearing the pathway and driveway to your home during the winter months. To prevent any accidents, keep salt or sand by the door to avoid falling or slipping. Make sure to use adequate footwear with good traction. Using ice and snow grips can greatly reduce the risk of a fall. And finally, take frequent breaks so you don't overexert yourself.
La paroisse Très Sainte Trinité est heureuse de vous accueillir à la messe dominicale du dimanche à l'église Très Sainte Trinité de Rockland. Avec l'abbé Albert, vivez avec nous dans le confort de votre maison la célébration du Seigneur avec lecture, évangile, chant, Eucharistie et bénédiction. La messe dominicale à l'église Très Sainte Trinité à TVC 22 ou encore sur internet à www.tvc22.ca.
And here we are back again with Robert Cléroux, the president of the Rockland chapter of the Legion. We are now going to talk about the, why do I forget this? Literacy.
Poster and literacy contest.
Poster and literacy contest.
How do we take care of youth? How does the Legion take care of youth? So the first thing is that for us, it is important that the youth understand the importance of Remembrance Day. So every year we have a contest where we encourage children of all age from grade 1 right through to high school, grade 12, to submit posters, poems, even any kind of artwork, which is then judged and then prizes are awarded. So this year we had 13 people apply with representing 4 schools here in Rockland, and we gave out $360 in prize money for the children who participated. The other things that we do for youth is that we support cadets, especially here at the Rockland Air Force Air Cadets, and scouts, guides. So last year we gave money to the cadets, the scouts, and the guides. So far this year we have given some money to the 2nd Rockland Guides and les Guides Franco. Last year we gave, I think it was $1,000 to establish the skate park here at the park.
Oh, you helped with that too?
We did, and with this year we gave $500, approximately $500 to Safety Net, which is through the fire department keeping children safe at home.
Okay.
So we're very keen on helping the youth of our community. So if there is any youth groups out there looking for funding, please contact us, contact the Legion. We'd be happy to try to assist. The other thing that we do for youth is that we provide bursaries. So last year we helped 7 students in Rockland with a $500 bursary, $3,500. This year we've put aside $5,000 to try to help students again. Any children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren of service members or veterans can apply for the bursary. So we were very pleased to be able to do that.
Now, these are all Canadian veterans?
Canadian and Commonwealth veterans. So,
Canadian and Commonwealth. Okay. So, for instance, somebody who's immigrated from India, in theory, could
if they served,
apply?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's good to know. It's kind of nice when there are no borders.
It is.
Wish there weren't any borders at all. Wouldn't it be a different world?
It would be.
Oh my goodness. It's, you get a sense that the world as it stands today can't possibly operate without military force, either as a deterrent or an offensive force. And yet how we wish that there were no military, that there was another way to solve all the problems, and that perhaps this was the last round of veterans ever to exist in this universe.
I don't think so. And I don't mean that to be negative in any ways. You think, most people think of veterans as those who served in World War II. But veterans is a lot broader than that today. I'm considered a veteran, even though 37 years in the military, I never really went to war. I visited troops in Afghanistan, I think it was 10 times, but I was never in a combat situation in Afghanistan. I was in the Adriatic during the former Yugoslavia conflict, but was never shot at or ever really put in danger. And I was in the doing peacekeeping after the first Gulf War. I've done lots of peacekeeping missions. So a veteran today is defined completely differently than it was maybe after the Great War, First World War, or even after the Second World War. Today's veteran could be very young. There's people who came back from Afghanistan just 2014, so just last year. So they could be 20-year-old veteran. I think the veteran of today is different well, at least different in my mind than in a lot of people's mind that think of the veteran as the 85-year-old who served in World War II or Korea.
Mm-hmm. So these are people who still have a lot of life left ahead of them.
Absolutely.
And a lot to do. And of course, some of them adapt back into society well, and the ones we hear about are the ones who don't.
That's true.
And they're very tragic cases. There was this article in the paper on the weekend, I don't know if you saw, about the consistently high proportion of veterans or people serving in the military who came from abusive situations, which certainly didn't mean that the majority of veterans or military were that, but there seemed to be an unusually high proportion, I guess, trying to make some sense of the incredibly significant numbers of veterans who, or even military, who suffer from PTSD and who have trouble dealing with the things that are thrown at them. Certainly the average run-of-the-mill person would not be able to deal with those things. So there is something in the training you receive that prepares you for that.
Oh, I'm not so sure. I think people join the military for all kinds of different reasons. Sometimes it is to run away from a situation. Sometimes it's just, for, like me, to join for the adventure, for the travel, for the education. The military offers great opportunities for education, free university if you qualify. So there's all kinds of reasons to join the military. And then once you do join the military, you are trained. You're very highly trained. Mm-hmm. And you get used to doing your job, and you're taking orders, and then but I think also you start to build a sense of commitment, a sense of community, a sense of comradeship with your fellow soldiers, sailors, airmen, and women, and that gets you through your job. I would say that the military is as diverse as our country. So all kinds of different people come to the military for all kinds of different reasons and from all kinds of different backgrounds. And then once you become a member of the military, you become part of a new family, if you will. So
a young person today who would be in the same shoes that you were in 30-some years ago who wants to join the military but doesn't really relish the thought of going over there somewhere and killing somebody because their government can't get it together. There's still something they could get out of the military.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, you know,
besides a free education.
A good salary, a good pension, travel. There's all kinds of good things about the military. I'm very proud of having served, obviously, but I would encourage anybody that wants that to go and have a look at the recruiting center in Ottawa and talk to a recruiter about all the different types of opportunities. I mean, there's everything from being a cook to being a pilot, and everything in between, from medical degrees to law degrees to, there's all kinds of opportunities in the military that a person can explore.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely in awe of anybody who serves in the military, who's willing to put themselves out there for that, and I'm aware of the tremendous training that these people receive. I just, like probably everybody in the world, wish that it didn't exist. It didn't have to exist, but that's utopia, and that's not our world. So, however, utopia is not our world, but you are trying to make the world a little bit of a better place.
We are.
You are. And you are doing it. And through the Legion, we talked about some of the programs that you do, but on a day-to-day basis, what does the Legion do? Our
main responsibility is taking care of veterans. We try to connect with our community to see if there's veterans in needs. Just before Remembrance Day, I visited all the veterans, or the old folks home here in Rockland and area. I went to Pearly Rideau, for example, just before Christmas, where I know there's a lot of veterans because it's a veterans hospital, and we spent some time with veterans there and presented them with a small Christmas gift and spent time with them, wished them a Merry Christmas. Our main concern, of course, is Remembrance Day Parade. So the Legion is approximately 300,000 people strong. We are the largest...
that's for Canada?
That's for Canada, yeah. We are the largest veteran service organization in Canada. Of those 300,000, about 100,000 of them are retired military veterans. The rest are family members or people who just believe in our mission. And
I could become a Legionnaire?
Anybody can become a Legionnaire. You just have to be of voting age and Canadian citizenship, Canadian citizen, or Commonwealth citizen. Here in Rockland, we're very small. There's only 61 of us. That's one of my main issues, is that we're trying to recruit new members. So we welcome everybody. Now I sort of lost my train of thought where I was going with this.
Well, I was asking you about what the Legion does on a day-to-day basis.
Right. So we've talked a lot about what we did with the youth, for example. Of course, the Poppy campaign is very important. We raised here in Rockland approximately $30,000 last year in the Poppy campaign, and I want to thank all the citizens of Clarence Rockland for everybody who donated or purchased poppies, and it was very, very strong support last year.
I love those poppies. There's something that happens when I put on one of those poppies.
Did you know that last year 18 million poppies were worn?
That's huge.
That's huge across the country. Yeah, and that raised approximately $12 million across the country to support veterans. That's huge.
Wait a minute. 18 million poppies and $12 million. Some people paid less than $1 for their poppy?
Sure.
That doesn't make sense. Okay, whatever.
Very proud of the support that we received. The other things that we do is occasionally we do dinners and dance and events like that. So last year, I'll start with, I think it was October, we had a very successful spaghetti supper. We followed that up with our Remembrance Day Poppy campaign, Remembrance Day itself. Very excellent turnout. We had wonderful weather last year, and lots of people came to the hall afterwards, spent some time with us. We participated in the Santa Claus Parade. We had breakfast with Santa at Club Powers. We co-hosted a card tournament with the Orleans Legion. We had a special dinner for all our volunteers, people who volunteered with the Legion. We took them out to dinner. Actually, we went to Gab's had a wonderful evening.
Great spot.
Yeah.
Great caps.
And our next event, which is very important to us, is our St. Patrick's Day dinner and dance. It's on the 14th of March. It's a Saturday. Doors will open at 5:30. Tickets are available at Club Powers, or you can call me at 613-446-0151. They're $15 in advance and $20 at the door. The reason these dances are important to us is that through that fundraising that we do, that's how we support youth groups in the community. As I said, the Poppy campaign can only be used towards veterans and their families. Where we do dinner and dances, we can use those funds to support other youth groups in the community.
That's good to know. That's certainly, everybody loves a dance and good food.
Sure. The other things that we do is we meet. We have an executive group of about 10 or 12 people, and we tend to meet every month. It's the second Wednesday of every month at Club Powers at 7:30 at night. And then our general meeting is every second month. So our next general meeting is March 18th, and it's at 7:30 at Club Powers. If anybody wants to join the Legion, you're pleased to attend. Come and see us. Come and spend some time with us. Introduce yourself to us. Our membership chair is Peter Smith, and we'll be there to talk to you about what Legion does, and anybody is welcome.
Well, it certainly sounds like you do a lot more than most people are aware of. Certainly much more than I was aware of. And it strikes me that the Legion is so linked, tied to military, and yet it expands well beyond that to activities for the veterans, for kids. But I'm wondering, do you have, when you talk about education, do you help the kids figure out why it's important to stay in school, things like that, and be proud of their country? Obviously, you do that.
The pride of the country is something that we do talk about. We don't do necessarily, we don't do outreach to kids to stay in school, but we do outreach to talk about Remembrance Day. So if there's any schools out there that wants a veteran to go and talk to the children about what Remembrance is all about, why it's important to have Remembrance Day, we're happy to do that.
Okay. It seems to me that one of the worst things that can happen to any human being, whether it be a young person or an old person or a middle-aged person, is not having a sense of purpose, a sense of what they're supposed to do, or a way to contribute. And clearly the Legionnaires they have a mission, they have a purpose.
Sure.
And with young people, it's so often a big issue for them, especially in this day. Well, it seems to be more so in this day and age, but it was probably always thus, only people never talked about it.
As I said to you earlier, one of my biggest problems here in Rockland is to try to recruit new members. We have recruited a few new members this year, and we had a few transfers from out of town, but we also lost a few, so we're down to 61. And I think there's two reasons why we're having difficulty recruiting new members. The first is that the younger generations don't tend to join service clubs like ours anymore. And I think the Knights of Columbus and other service organizations will tell you the same thing. The second reason is that because we're so small, we share our locale with the Knights of Columbus at Club Powers. I think if we had our own building, that we may have a bit more success attracting Legion members to our building. So our long-term goal in the future would be to try to eventually buy ourselves our own locale, and something with a kitchen, a hall, some rooms that we could rent out to local community groups. But we're far, far away from that at this point.
Okay. Now, I might be wrong about this, but I have the impression that the Knights of Columbus are strictly Roman Catholic.
They are.
And yet the Legion is multi-denominational?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, I believe I know the cadets, Bob Merritt?
Yes.
The chaplain?
He's our reverend. He's the Legion reverend.
Okay. And I believe he's Anglican.
Yes, he is.
Yes. So anybody of any denomination can join
Absolutely.
the Legion?
Yeah.
All right.
The different service organizations have different rules and regulations. So the Knights of Columbus is a men-only Roman Catholic organization. The Legion, of course, we accept men and women of all denomination.
Okay, well, that's very good to know. We're going to break now, once
Okay.
again, and we will be right back.
Informez-vous avec Jacques est une émission d'intérêt public à but non lucratif qui couvre tout ce qui se passe dans notre belle région de Clarence-Rockland. Animé par Jacques Tessier, sur place, il assemble entrevues avec des moments cocasses sur les organisations et événements qui se déroulent durant l'année. Jacques s'intéresse à vous et est là pour vous informer de ce qui se passe chez vous. Informez-vous avec Jacques à TVC22 ou sur Internet à www.tvc22.ca. Catalin Poor invites you to watch her show, Cats About Town, where she talks and interviews local people about their jobs and other interesting subjects. Catalin asks good and interesting questions that cover topics that makes us think about our city and society in general. Catalin cares for our community and shares her perspective and thoughts about life. Don't miss Cats About Town on TVC22 or on the internet at www.tvc22.ca.
Your health. Tips for healthy living.
Driving in severe winter conditions can be challenging and dangerous. Here are a few tips that can help keep you safe while driving. Be alert and slow down in the winter. Maintain a safe distance from vehicles in front of you. A 4-second distance is ideal in slippery conditions. When possible, drive during daylight hours. And consider taking a winter driving course so you can learn how to brake safely, how to get out of a skid, and how your car handles in winter weather.
Here we are back again with Robert Cléroux to talk a little bit more about not only the Legion but the military. So an area that so many people in Clarence-Rockland know intimately because there do seem to be either families in the military or neighbors that you have who are in the military. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth here. So before we move back to some of the Legion's programs, tell us a little bit more about what it is that the military does if you join it today, what you can expect.
Yeah, I'm not the recruiter, so I have to say that if you really want a lot of information, please go and visit the recruiting office or go to the website, Canadian Armed Forces website, and you'll get a lot more information. But I think there's a bit of misconception that if you join the military today, you're automatically going to go off to war somewhere. And I think the military is so much more than that. For example, as a sailor, I've rescued people at sea from sinking ships, from yachts or sailboats who were in danger of foundering. But also, we've done other things. I remember there was a big fire in Kamloops when I was coxswain of HMCS Algonquin, and our ship was in refit at the time, so I sent 150 sailors from my ship's company to Kamloops to fight fires. Because houses were being threatened of burning and people were in danger of dying. The Canadian Armed Forces does so much in Canada, taking care of our fisheries, doing pollution control, doing search and rescue right across the country. We're involved with Canadians from coast to coast to coast. So there's a lot that the Canadian Armed Forces does within our country and abroad.
And I remember when there was the ice storm in 1998, 1996, I always get those two mixed up. The military were big.
Absolutely. They came in for Petawawa with General Hillier at that time was the base commander in Petawawa, I believe. General Natinchuk was one of the colonels of the regiments. These men went on to become Chief of Defense Staff and came to Ottawa and to here, into Rockland and all the way to the Quebec border to assist people that were suffering through the ice storm.
They were like a godsend to anybody. I know a few people who were stuck in their places out in the woods, and without the military, they probably would have lost hope after 10 days or so. Yeah,
as I said earlier to you, it's service before self, but service to Canada. So when Canada calls, the Canadian Armed Forces answers.
Well, they are our heroes in many ways, and we don't want to see any harm come to them, but it's all part of it, obviously. And I know a few young people, and of course, anytime your spouse goes off or your child goes off to the military, it's always such mixed emotions. But it's good to know that you can also serve your whole career without having to go into other people's problems.
The strength behind the military is the family. My wife, who raised 2 children, my son David and daughter Stephanie, stayed home when I was away. I'm going to be away for 6-9 months at a time. One time I remember her telling me a story where the school teacher said, when did your husband leave you? And my wife says, my husband hasn't left me, he's in the military, he's away. So she was basically a single mom for many, many months while I was away at sea, serving my country. Very, very strong lady, and that's the same for my mom and dad, who are here in Rockland. Every time I was deployed, whether I was in Afghanistan visiting troops or I was in the Gulf, they always worried. Your son or your daughter is gone for 6 or 9 months period of time, and you worry that something may happen to them. So it's difficult for them more than it is for us, I think, because they worry while we do our job.
That's right. And you're trained for it in a way.
Yeah.
So you made it back safely, wonderfully, and now you want to keep giving and doing, and we have you here in Rockland, and there's a need, obviously, not to promote not just the military, but also the Legion. Mm-hmm. And you've got a project coming up?
We do. A very important project, I think. We would like to add a stone to our war memorial here in front of City Hall. The stone will read Afghanistan 2001-2014. We are in the process of doing that planning. We hope to get the support of our mayor and our councillors for this project. I think it's very important because, as we've discussed, there's a lot of military families here in Rockland, and a lot of those military families have served in Afghanistan. It is the new veteran, and I think that it's important that we commemorate that period of our lives.
It's almost as a way of expressing gratitude, but also hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know that the people who are placing those stones came back, so you can be grateful. You know that the ones that it's commemorating are the ones perhaps who didn't come back, and that's hope that they didn't die in vain.
Right. I'm glad you said hope. That was a very strong emotion when you said that word to me. Because my first time in Afghanistan, we landed in a combat aircraft, and I had a bulletproof vest and a helmet on and a weapon on my side. And as soon as we landed, we had to run and hide behind blast walls because the airport was being shelled. My last time in Afghanistan, I landed in dress pants and a short sleeve shirt in a civilian aircraft, and went through an airport that was basically normal. So over the years that I visited Afghanistan, I saw change and improvement. Now, is the country like Canada? No, it's not. And will it be 30 years from now? Probably not. But there was change that I saw from the first time I was there to the last time I was there. So I have hope that Afghanistan will be someday a country that is stable and maybe even democratic.
We can only hope, because the terrible things that are happening over there and in that whole region are just beyond our comprehension. We can't imagine Canadians living that way. Yeah. We don't want to think of those people living that way. And there doesn't seem to be enough military force in the universe to settle their problems.
No.
So as we move along and you get your stone in front of City Hall, which I'm sure you will one way or another, I'm sure that there will be support from our council and our mayor, who have so far proven themselves to be wonderfully open and caring people, well understanding of the desires and the interests of the community. So that's a stone. So what else can the Legion do to help bring peace to the world?
I'm not sure it's our role to bring peace to the world. But
you are now the wise ones.
We do want to continue to assist. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that the Legion is about 300,000 strong. And it was originally put together in 1926. So we've been around almost 90 years to assist the veterans of the First World War, making sure that they were being taken care of. The Legion was established with the unification of several veterans group into one. Why I'm mentioning this again is because we have a voice with the government. Because of the amount of veterans that serve within our organization, we get a chance to advocate for veterans with the federal government. And I think that's a role that we'll continue to play forever. As long as there are veterans, then there's a need for a Legion, and there's a need for us to advocate on behalf of those veterans. So even here in Rockland, we'll continue to do our best to assist veterans. If there's any veterans out there who need help, please contact us. If there's family members who know that their father or mother or family member needs assistance from a veteran, please contact us. You can contact us at our website, www.rcl554.ca, or again, you can call me at 613-446-0151. Be happy to help any way we can.
And that's not supplanting the responsibility of Veterans Affairs or the federal government.
Absolutely
it's simply helping act as intermediary.
Absolutely. Yeah. Veterans Affairs does a pretty good job, and it's not perfect. We get lots of complaints, and you know, the new Veterans Charter needs to be modified. I think it's changed some parts for the good, and some parts need to go back to the way it was before. So I was asked if I like the new Veterans Charter, and the parts that I do like about it is that there's training and education available for veterans if they're injured, and can then move on to maybe a new career, other opportunities. The old charter didn't do that. So there are good parts in the new Veterans Charter that I think we need to keep, but I also think that severely injured soldiers, sailors, airmen, and women need to have a pension and not just a cash payment. So I think maybe a mixture of the old and the new needs to be implemented, but I leave that up to Dominion Command to continue to advocate for us with the government, and hopefully someday we won't get complaints from veterans anymore.
There will always be complaints. But that's a way to improve, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And at least they have a place where they can turn to. They don't have to go and they don't have to sink into a hole of despair, because there is going to be somebody that they can talk to. In this country, it's one of the wonderful privileges, and it's one of the things that you fought for.
Absolutely.
Along with your colleagues, or whatever we're supposed to call them, brothers and sisters in arms.
Yeah, comrades.
Comrades, there we go. Comrades. You know, everybody needs comrades. Everybody wants to be part of a community, of a group that you feel they've got your back.
Absolutely.
They're going to help you.
Yeah.
And so since 1926, the Legion has survived and served its people, and what are you going to do in 2026? That's just around the corner.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a celebration.
You're going to be around.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope the Legion in Rockland will be around. If we can attract new members and continue to grow, we'll be able to continue to make a difference in our community. A difference that I think would be missed if the Legion wasn't here.
For sure.
Yeah.
And maybe a movie, maybe a book about what's happened. And we do have to learn from the past, don't we?
We do.
Because if we don't learn from the past, then we all know what the saying goes.
I had an interesting opportunity earlier this year. I spoke to the Air Cadets at one of their parades, and I challenged them and said, you're all young enough to understand that 2017 is coming up. That's the 150th anniversary of our country. It's also the 100th anniversary of Vimy. So what are you going to do within your community to celebrate the 150th and 100th anniversary of Vimy? So I'm hoping that, as you said, the youth is the most important part. So I'm hoping the youth will pick up those issues and start thinking about that in high school and say, okay, 2 years from now is the 150th anniversary of Canada. What can we do in our community to commemorate that? Mm-hmm.
I know that there was a time, perhaps the First World War, perhaps the Second World War, when a lot of people joined the military because the economy was just so bad that there was nothing else that they could do. There were no job prospects. Hopefully the conditions will never be the same in Canada ever again, although history has proven that we can never really predict what's going to happen. Things do fall apart when you least expect them. But assuming that it's not for economic reasons that people join the military, assuming that it's out of a sense of service, I think that the work that you're doing today is educating young people to that sense of service.
Sure.
certainly there's very little in the popular culture that fosters that sense of service, in fact, if anything. And that's my pet peeve with today's culture for young people, is that it fosters a sense of despair, of hopelessness, of everything is ugly, everything is horrible. And that just doesn't help any kind of society.
I think we can help each other.
Yeah.
And I think that service organizations like the Legion try to do that. Mm-hmm. And we won't be able to solve all the problems of the world, but we maybe solve some problems, and maybe we can help people that are in need.
Yeah, and there always will be.
Absolutely.
Well, Bob, I totally enjoyed this interview with you. I know that you've told the people a lot about the Legion and a lot about things that they've never thought about or heard about, and that they certainly weren't aware of. And hopefully this program will end up with a few new recruits, and if nothing else, it'll give people something to talk about that's much more positive.
Well, thanks very much, Caitlin. I really do appreciate the opportunity. One of my Grace volunteer, Joan Rodriguez, will be going around high schools very soon looking for people who want to apply for bursaries. So remember that we have money for bursaries. Mm-hmm. As I said, if there's any youth group out there looking for assistance, we are available to support financially. We will be giving some money to the Air Cadets again this year. We'll continue to assist as much as we can. And if you have any good ideas for projects that you want the Legion to do, please contact us. Please come and volunteer and be a Legion member if you feel like it. We accept anybody, as long as you're Canadian at voting age, you're welcome. And thanks again for this great opportunity. Very much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Chaque élève est unique. Chacun a ses propres intérêts, objectifs et forces. Tous devraient avoir les mêmes chances de réussir et d'obtenir leur diplôme d'études secondaires. C'est pourquoi le gouvernement de l'Ontario a mis sur pied des programmes visant à personnaliser l'expérience scolaire des élèves. Nous sommes à la recherche de gens comme vous pour nous aider à améliorer l'expérience scolaire de nos élèves en leur fournissant une expérience en milieu de travail. Relevez le défi avec nous et appuyez chaque élève à se bâtir un avenir prometteur. Venez découvrir notre programme novateur, la majeure haute spécialisation. La majeure haute spécialisation est un programme spécialisé approuvé par le ministère qui permet aux élèves de concentrer leurs études à un secteur d'activité économique particulier tout en répondant aux conditions d'obtention du diplôme d'études secondaires, peu importe leur destination post-secondaire, qu'elle soit la formation en apprentissage, les études collégiales ou universitaires, ou bien encore directement sur le marché du travail.
Dans la majeure, l'élève doit suivre 2 crédits en éducation coopérative. Ça veut dire que l'élève doit aller faire un stage chez un employeur. De cette façon-là, on vise à ce que l'élève ait vraiment une expérience la plus enrichissante possible, qui va vraiment lui permettre de comprendre c'est quoi la réalité au niveau professionnel du domaine qui l'intéresse.
En tant qu'entrepreneur, Carl Poirier a pris l'occasion d'investir dans l'avenir d'une élève.
Dans la vie, on a besoin des gens qui nous donnent une chance, et puis c'est ça que j'ai fait. Oui, ça m'a pris du temps, on a investi dans ce stage-là, nous aussi, et on a pu voir qu'à la fin, ça portait fruit.
Pour Émilie Tousignan, c'est l'occasion de développer des connaissances et des compétences spécialisées. Émilie met aussi en pratique les connaissances acquises en classe lors de certifications et formations obligatoires qui font partie du programme de la majeure haute spécialisation.
C'était une vraiment bonne expérience. J'ai participé à beaucoup d'activités. J'ai fait des dessins, ce que j'adore. J'ai fait du coding. J'ai participé à des photoshoots avec des clients. J'ai fait une grande variété de choses qui m'ont vraiment permis d'apprendre.
J'ai appris ce quels étaient ses talents à elle pour pouvoir, mettre ses talents en pratique dans des vraies situations. Et puis, ça s'était donné, par hasard ou pas, que ses talents ont été carrément apportés dans les projets réels. Elle a vu carrément ses illustrations, dans son cas, faire partie d'un projet réel.
Pour Stéphane Paré, l'expérience pratique de la majeure lui a permis d'explorer et de préciser ses objectifs postsecondaires et de prendre une décision éclairée concernant son avenir.
Vraiment, ça m'a aidé tellement par rapport à ma décision de où je voulais aller et qu'est-ce que je voulais faire après le secondaire. C'est une question que tous les élèves se posent quand ils sont en 11e ou en 12e année. C'est qu'est-ce que je vais faire après le secondaire? Moi, grâce à mon placement ici, je savais ce que je voulais faire. Je savais que c'était en télé que je voulais continuer mon éducation postsecondaire. Ça m'a dit finalement que c'est quelque chose que je voulais continuer. Non seulement c'est l'élève qui peut recevoir de l'éducation d'un côté pratique sur le champ, mais aussi c'est l'employeur vraiment qui reçoit des services. Donc c'est vraiment un partenariat qui va des deux côtés.
Les avantages pour vous en tant que commerçant, entrepreneur, chef d'entreprise ou autre sont nombreux.
On est une compagnie qui est en train de grandir pas mal vite et puis on a besoin de l'aide. Ashley apporte à notre commerce quelqu'un qui travaille très fort, qui veut apprendre. Et c'est certain que c'est une bonne idée parce que ça nous aide, vraiment, ça nous aide d'avoir quelqu'un d'autre qui peut travailler pour nous. Et puis, c'est gratuit.
Les avantages pour moi d'aller faire du bénévolat chez Complete Healthcare Solutions, ça me donne de l'expérience, puis je peux mettre en pratique mes connaissances que j'apprends à l'école. J'apprends à comment travailler en équipe, j'apprends à comment être organisé et travailler de leur manière, donc c'est le fun.
En appuyant un élève dans son cheminement scolaire, vous leur donnez les outils nécessaires pour créer une expérience scolaire motivante et enrichissante. Il y a des élèves de la majeure de votre communauté qui cherchent présentement à entamer des stages dans le milieu de travail de votre secteur. Si vous êtes intéressé à accueillir un élève au sein de votre entreprise, veuillez communiquer avec l'un des conseils scolaires de langue française de votre localité et demandez à parler à la personne responsable de la majeure haute spécialisation. Un programme qui répond aux besoins individuels de chaque élève en matière d'apprentissage, la majeure haute spécialisation. Relevez le défi avec nous et appuyez chaque élève à se bâtir un avenir prometteur.
Les arbres et les falaises pouvant accueillir un nid sont rares dans les prairies. Heureusement, la chevêche des terriers n'en souffre pas, puisqu'elle fait son nid sous la terre dans des terriers abandonnés. À l'arrivée de l'hiver, elle vole vers le sud et se rend au Texas ou au Mexique. Malheureusement, beaucoup de chevêches meurent avant de migrer et plusieurs ne reviendront jamais. Le manque de prairies naturelles, les pesticides et la circulation nuisent à la chevêche des terriers. Aujourd'hui, c'est une espèce en péril. Mais des chercheurs et des propriétaires de fermes travaillent ensemble pour protéger les prairies et les animaux fouisseurs afin que les générations futures puissent, elles aussi, observer la chevêche des terriers vivante. Visitez le ffdp.ca. Vous en apprendrez davantage pour protéger la faune et la flore du Canada. ffdp.ca.
S'il suffisait d'aimer, si l'on changeait les choses un peu, rien qu'en aimant donner, s'il suffisait qu'on s'aime, s'il suffisait d'aimer,
je ferais de ce rêve un monde, une éternité.
J'ai besoin de personne.